Hello everyone, welcome to another My 2015 tutorial. This one we're going to do some 3D modeling and some animation, building a character rig for an elf. So we're going to go from start to finish on the entire thing. We're going to build our model from scratch, and then we're going to character rig it, skin it, and animate it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in some reference images, and before we even do that, we need to create ourselves a new project that we do with every project inside of Maya. So let's go to File, Project Window, and we'll go to New. This one we will call Elf. Go ahead and accept. Okay, and let's see here, where's that new folder at? There it is. Okay, here we go. So, shrink Maya down for a second. My source images I have included in well, for one, this is for my class. On Moodle, you will find your source images for your elf. If I can, I will add the source images to my YouTube channel as well, so if anyone else who is not in my class wants to follow along and do this project, you guys can acquire them there, and that way you guys can also participate. Okay, so we want to take our source images and we want to put them inside of our source images folder. So here's my source images folder. I'm going to open that up. Here's my two elf drawings, left and right, or left and front, side and front. There we go. Let's go ahead and close that down. We'll reopen up Maya. There we go. Okay. So now we need to create ourselves a couple image planes. So let's go ahead and create our first one. Go to Create, Polygon Primitives, and we'll create ourselves a plane. Okay, drops there right in the center. I turned interactive creation off so that way it would drop in the center rather than me having to draw it on there. I'm going to scale it up now, so that's this little teeny square has a little bit bigger to work with. Okay, something like that. Now, some of you may be asking yourself, like, is this going to mess with the aspect ratio of the image, manually changing the size of the plane? And the answer is yes. But for me, I like to kind of work visually, deciding what looks right to me. If you want to go and preserve aspect ratios, you can do that inside of the creation of your plane. But that's not the route I like to go. It's not my workflow, so this is the way I'm going to do it. So I got my first plane created. I'm going to now create a new shader for my reference image. So I'll go to my Hyper Shades icon over here. Shrink this down a little bit. I'm going to create myself a new Lambert. Call this one Ref Front. And I will create one more. Let's go ahead, so I don't have to come back in here real quick. Let's do this one. We'll post one Ref Side. Naming everything inside Maya is extremely important, so make sure you're naming all your shaders as you create them and your objects as you create them. So this one here, I'll call this one Ref Front. Typically when it comes to base meshes, I include mesh as well, but since this is just an image plane, I'm just going to leave it as this. Alright. So I'll close out my Hyper Shade. Just press spacebar in the open area and that will bring it back to your perspective view. I don't really need my grid, so I'm going to turn that off as well. This little icon inside your viewport will turn off your grid. Okay. Now, if you hold down right mouse button on top, so there's three different ways that I'm aware of to assign shaders to an object, and two of them are inside the Hyper Shade, but the third is the quickest and handiest. You can just go to your object, hold down right mouse button, and this floating menu appears. At the bottom of the floating menu, you'll see Assign Existing Materials. And since we already created the hypershade, ref front and ref side, I can now just select ref front, and now that one is allocated to this image plane. Okay, so let's go ahead and attach in our first image. If you go to the attributes of this image plane, so if you see over on the side here, there's these tabs. Each one here says channel box right here. Right below it says attributes, and then it says tool settings. If you don't have your attributes tab, you can get it from right up here. You'll see if you hover over this icon, it'll say show hide attribute editor. That'll pop up in your attribute tab. Okay, on the far right of your attribute tab, you'll see that there's a tab that says front ref front Lambert. That is where your Lamberts are usually, or your shaders in general, are held, is on the very far right. So I'll select that, then we'll go to the color tab, and where there's the checker box, I'll click on the checker, and that will send a link from this color attribute looking for a file to be plugged in here. So then we'll go over here where it says file, and it'll bring us into another menu here where it says image name. That's what I want. I'll click the folder on the side. Now that will allow me to search for my image. So let's go ahead and attach in elf front and go to open. So two things I might want to backpedal just a little bit here. If this doesn't pop up for you, it may be because you have another project currently set. If you set your project, go to File, Set Project. That will tell Maya that's the project you're looking for, and that will make it to where when you're looking for the folder for your source images, it'll look in the source images folder of what we're working on right now, not some other project you're working on before. Also, if you notice, the texture isn't actually being applied yet, and that's because we don't actually have textures turned on yet. So if you click on the little checker box here inside your hypershade, that will activate your textures, and we'll see what's going on here. Okay, so there is my elf. If you get a black side, it's just because the normals only face one direction on a face, and right now they're facing away, or they're facing towards the area that I'd be working in. If I was looking at it this way, I'd be looking at the wrong side of it. If you want to see both sides of it, you can change your renderer up here from Viewport 2.0 to Legacy High Quality, and then you'll be able to see both sides of it. But 2.0 optimizes your viewport so it's not hogging too much resources. That's the way we're going to go. Okay, so taking a look at my elf here, it's a little bit skinny. I know elves are supposed to be skinny, but a little bit too skinny. So we're going to go ahead and scale it out in the X just a little bit to make it look a little bit more anatomically correct. Okay. That looks just about right to me. Okay. I like to live by the policy of it looks right, it is right. So looking at our elf here, there's a couple things I want to point out. For one, her arms are a little bit short. So I didn't draw this image, I'm just working off of another artist's work. But I know that this is one area that I'd probably end up changing a little bit. So I want to keep my eye on that when it comes to modeling. If it looks like it's just too short, which I already kind of know that it is, I'll probably end up changing this. Also, her legs are pretty long and they're angled off to the side, so I'll probably end up having to, at the very least, change the angle of how this is going to be finished, because I don't want her foot being kind of slanted in this direction. I want it to be laying flat for when I'm skinning it. And as I'm on it, you want a flat foot for rigging and modeling and animation. So I'll at the very least be twisting this and probably bringing this in a little bit closer. So those are some things I'm looking out for. Also, her body, if you look right here, her torso is very short. In different types of cartoons, like that is kind of an acceptable art style, so I might leave this alone, but I may feel the need to change it in the future, and I'm just not going to confine myself to the reference image. I'm just going to use it as a building plate. So if I feel I need to change something, I will do so. But to begin with, I'll build it to spec and use this to help me get the anatomy right. Okay. Something else you want to be aware of when it comes to these kinds of reference images is that you're only getting a 2D perspective. So you got this 2D face here. You don't got a lot of 3D depth information. You get a very flat looking face. And same thing's going to be from the side. Some things will possibly not line up. You might have to use some creative license on fixing that. So just things to be aware of. So let's go ahead and move forward. Let's get our next reference image in. So we're going to go to Create. We're going to create ourselves another plane. Okay. Again. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and think smart. Let's go ahead and delete that one I just created. Let's just take this one here. We'll duplicate this, Control D, and I will rename this one from front 1 to side. Go ahead and rotate it to 90 degrees in the Y. Okay, that's good. And let's go ahead and let's just hold down right mouse button here so we get this floating menu. Go down to Assign Existing Material, and this time we'll choose the ref side material. So that just saves a couple steps. Alright. Now, the side material doesn't have our file in there yet, so we have to still run through that last gamut that we did before. We have to go to Color, and I'll click on that file input right here. So we're going to add in a texture. We're going to go to File, click on the folder, and then we're going to take the side texture, go to Open, and there we go. Alright. So let's go ahead and see what we're looking at here, see how this lines up. Okay. So this is some of the stuff I was wanting everyone to be aware of. This image is exactly the same height because all we did is duplicated the reference board. But as you can see, things aren't quite lining up. So we'll have to go through and actually rescale this. Okay. That looks a little more accurate. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look real quick at the UV textures. Let's make sure that our UV textures are taking up their 1 by 1 space, because that can also throw some things off. So I just want to make sure when we line these things up that we eliminate some of the obvious stuff. So I'm going to click on this window over here. We're going to go to Panels, Panel, and UV Texture Editor. Okay. All right. So, alright, so that one's taking up all the space. That's good. On this one, that one's also taking up all the space. Alright, so that's good as well. So, we eliminated that problem. That wasn't an issue. So what we're going to have to do is we're just going to have to change the shape of this plane so that it matches up a little bit better with what we got going on here. So, I'm going to scale this down a little bit. Okay, push it back. Okay. So if I'm looking at these areas here, I can see, like, the crotch area here. This one over here is a little bit lower, so that needs to come up. Okay, let's do the feet. Alright, that will work okay for the feet. Breasts are about the right level, just a little bit high on this one. Let's go ahead and just scale that down just a little bit. Okay. So the shoulders and collarbones are kind of lining up. Jawline. Jawline on this one's a little bit low. Let's see if I shift that up if that helps. The top of the head, that almost lines up. The brow line, this one's a little bit low. Nose line. That's okay. Looks a little bit different. I'm just going to tell you from experience that the face is going to be a little bit of a bear in this one. We're going to be going a little bit back and forth and having to take quite a bit of creative liberties to make this work because the nose and lips and stuff don't actually match up from the side and front view. This is something that you'll probably end up having to deal with if you're an artist and you're working with reference images. Some things just won't be perfect, so we're going to work with what we got and just change if we need to. So just don't feel like whenever you're working with reference images, unless they tell you it has to be a spec, don't feel like you're confined to be inside that box, that you can take some creative liberties. And in most cases, if it's not for an engineering tool or something, you'll be okay. They probably won't even notice that you changed it a little bit to make it work. If they did, well, you were found out, and you need to make a couple adjustments. But in this case, this is just a learning project for creating a 3D model from scratch, and there's no one judging us, so let's just go ahead and roll with it. Alright, so these are kind of matched up close enough for us to work with. I'm going to go ahead and move this off to the side. And I'm going to move this one back. Okay. And the reason why I did that is so that my workspace here is clear, so that when I'm modeling in the orthographic views, which are these 4-panel views over here, turn these guys on. Now, when I'm modeling this grid area, I can model right on top of this one and right on top of this one at the same time, but these image planes won't be in the way of the actual 3D workspace, which is exactly what I'm after. Okay? Alright, so we're at 16 minutes right now. We got the image planes set up. I know I did a lot of jaw jacking to kind of get us in gear here, but we're ready to move now. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and line up this other part first before I take a break. Make sure that this one here is actually lined up on the center grid. That way, we're going to build a symmetrical model, but we're going to work on one half. That's the reason why we only have one half of this image plane here. So line that one up. That one's good. Let's go ahead and take a look at the side one. Side one isn't as crucial, but I want to kind of also put it to where this is right on this big black grid line that's running right through the center of it. That's what I'm after. Okay, so now we're ready to start modeling. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. We're about 17 minutes in. Our reference images are set up. In the next lesson, we're going to start our torso model, which will kind of set the groundwork for our other appendages that will come in. The head and hair we're going to save for the end, usually because it's really going to be the hardest Part 2 model. Everything else will be pretty simple in comparison. Okay, so let's go ahead and save here. We're going to go to create ourselves a new scene, so go ahead and save scene as. This will put it inside of our ELF folder here. So we'll call this one ELF modeling scene 1. Now, I do incremental savings almost every session. I save myself a new scene. That way, if I end up with a corrupted file, I can just go back. Incremental savings is something that if you're working with computers, you want to do with any kind of project. It'll just save you a hassle if something happens, if something's deleted, something isn't working, something is corrupted. So we're going to start out with scene 1, and each product will start a new scene. Excuse me. If you are in my classroom, when it comes to grading, I want your last name included with the scene file. That way I know whose file it is. That's also, excuse me, something in my throat. Sorry. Also, with including your name, if you are working in a big group project and someone else has your file and needs you to fix something, they'll know who modeled it and be able to contact you. So this is also just good practice in the workplace, unless they ask you not to do something like that. That way they at least know who was working on the project, and if something comes up broken, they know who to talk to you. Alright, so saving scene as, and I'm done. Go ahead and say OK. I have a student version, so it's just telling me that this is for personal learning only, not for selling, which is exactly what I'm doing. Alright, so my scene is saved, and we're ready to start modeling the next lesson. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.